DIY Diana here. Today we are going to learn how to make a table riser. Now a table riser is for displaying the things on your table or your buffet or your entryway, and it gives it a little bit of height and dimension. And on this one we've used little round balls as our riser. Now you can also use thread holders or square or 1x1s or other different things as your legs, but today we use these round balls. So the supplies that you need are a square or rectangular board. This is a 14¼ inch by 12 inch by 1 inch board that is lightly stained with medium walnut, and I used Watco Danish oil to stain it with. It's just a real light stain. You'll need blue painter's tape. You'll need 4 balls that are 1¼ inch that have a flat side. They're also called knobs. I got them on Amazon, and they're pre-drilled. You'll need 4. I have 5. I don't know why I have 5, but you need 4 2-inch drywall screws, a ruler or a yardstick, some black acrylic paint, a Phillips screwdriver with kind of a smallish head, a stencil brush, a palette. This one's been well used, a piece of paper towel. I've got a large piece because I'm going to fold it into quarters as I use it, and my trusty Diet Coke. And I also have the instructions. So the first thing we're going to do, now this is pre-drilled, pre-stained, pre-cut. So the first thing we're going to do is take and turn this over to the wrong side, so the bottom side, and this has got holes drilled on the 4 corners, enough in so that these don't go over the edge on any side. And my husband did the cutting and the drilling, and I tried to be a good sport and go out with him to the garage, but I lost interest, and he was a good sport to finish it without me. So we're going to put the 2-inch screw in the pre-drilled hole, and then we're going to put our glasses on. I'm vain, so I don't wear them all the time. And then we're going to line it up with the hole and put it in. And then we're going to screw it in. Kind of even it up so it'll still sit flat. Now, I don't know about you ladies, and maybe some of you men, but I find that men always tighten things too tight. If you try to untighten something that your husband or significant other has tightened in, I don't know about you, but can you ever untighten it if you need to? No. They tighten them too tight. It's like once it gets tight, they try to do 4 more times. So I always do it just not quite as tight as I possibly can, so that in case I need to untighten it, I can. I think it's a macho thing. Okay, now, I did 2 of them. And the reason I do these first is because it helps with the stenciling on it. It raises it up so you can stencil better. And then just, see, this one's a little wobbly. You can also, there's also these screws that they look like a bolt, a headless bolt on both ends, and you can use those too if you don't want to pre-drill the ball, if you want to use something else. And then you can just drill into the wood and drill into the side of this, and then you don't have to drill into a ball. Because my husband used a special jig to drill into the ball. I think he set it into something and then did something else and then something else. So it was very technical. My husband always likes to use jigs, and by the time he figures out his jig, I can have the job done. But he's an engineer, and that's how engineers do things. Okay, so they're very sturdy, and we've got the balls on. Now I'm going to turn this way, and it's set pretty even. And then I'm going to take, and I'm going to measure. So I know it's supposed to be 12 inches. It's a 1 by 12 board, but actually it's 11 inches. So I'm going to divide 11 inches in half. And that is what? It is, I'm 5 and, it's not 5 and a half. Because when I measured, I don't have a pencil. When I measured 5 and a half, okay, Carrie, you're going to have to stop this because
It would be 5 and a half.
it's supposed to be 5 and a half, but when I figured it at 5 and a half, it wasn't 5 and a half. But it's supposed to be 5 and a half.
No, it wasn't center when you did it.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to say it's 5 and a half. And then we're going to measure this from 5 and a half. So yeah, it's 5 and a half. My math did come through. Mr. Mitchell, my 5th grade teacher, would be so proud. 5 and a half. And then 5 and a half. And then I'm going to measure it 3 times at 5 and a half. And now I'm going to eyeball it because that's who I am. If you are more of a perfectionist, you might want to take more time to do this. So I am going to go 1/4 of an inch off of that 5 and a half on both sides and place the painter's tape. And I want to make sure I wrap it around the sides because we're also going to stencil on the sides on both edges. So this takes some adjusting because you want to make sure you get it just right, and that's why people measure more than I do. Now I'm also going to measure again to see how I am up here. Now this is a little over 4 inches and this is a little over 4 inches, so that's exactly how I want it. And now you want to make sure you get this pressed down really well because you don't want your paint to seep underneath the tape, because we're going to stencil in between these 2 pieces of tape. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. You know, I'm going to go a little bit farther and I'm going to redo that because I don't think that's wide enough. Just going to measure again. What did they say? Measure once, cut twice. What is that saying? What I want want is 4 inches on each side. Let's see, I've got 4 1/4 and 4 1/4 and 4 1/4, 4 1/4, 4 1/4. I guess I want 4 1/4. That looks good. 4 1/4 looks good. Yep, that's what I want. Okay, now I'm pressing down really good because the first one I did, it bled through a little bit and I had to use paint thinner on that too. Okay, now I've got this last bit of black paint that I'm going to use so I can throw this one away. This is my trusty old stencil brush. You kind of find brushes that you really like and you don't want to get rid of them, and this one is kind of to the point where I really need to get rid of it. Now remember, when you stencil, you daub it on here and then you press down on the paper towel and hit it 3 times because you don't want your paint to be runny. And then you just start doing this. And see, my paint isn't runny, so it's less likely to seep through. And then you come and get some more and daub it 3 times. And I don't have enough on there. Okay, that's completely gone. They're both black paints, so I don't think it's going to matter. As far as color goes, nope, it's the same color. It's all black. Now I'm going to get this, I'm going to make sure this is pressed down, because see, that side wasn't pressed down. And then on this side here, that's not pressed down. Now, one thing, we're going to let this dry, and while it's drying, if it looks like there's a spot that looks oily because of the stain, it's oily. If there's a spot that looks oily, you might want to go over it and dab it a little bit with your paper towel to take the oil off and then repaint it. Because I had to do that with the first one too. So we're going to let it set and dry for a minute, and then we're going to pull the tape up and then reposition our tape and then do some more stenciling on the outer edges. Okay, so we've let it dry, and one of the ways you can tell it's dry, if you hold it up and if it's shiny, that means the paint is still wet, but if it's not shiny, that means it's all dry. So we're going to take the paint, we're going to get the tape, and we're going to get an edge, and we're going to pull it up, and we got a nice straight edge. It didn't seep through. And now we're going to get the other nice straight edge again. Didn't seep through. Now, one of the things, if you're going to use this for a cutting board, I don't know about the paint part, but this part here, whenever you have a cutting board, you seal it with tungsten oil. So I don't know about the paint though. Now we're gonna do our side side stripes, and I want to make them about 1/4 inch away from the wide stripe and about 1/4 inch wide. And so we're going to tape over this. But we're just going to tape over 1/4 inch. So we're going to look over here. And I'm looking through the, let me put my glasses on. Looking through the tape. And now we're just going to eyeball it for about 1/4 inch wide. We're going to measure it. We're going to do one at a time because it's easier when you're doing it one at a time to see the lines. Okay, that's 1/4 inch. And that's 1/4 inch. We're pressing this down. I'm not pressing it on that side because I don't want it to pull up the black in the center. This one doesn't take as much paint because it's not as wide of a stripe. Now, another thing, you can use different things for the feet. You can use, I don't know if I already said this, but you can use, or different shapes and sizes. You can make round ones or square ones, and you can paint them different colors. You can paint the knobs. I left the knobs natural color, the feet, but you can paint them different colors, and you can paint the boards colors. Paint the stripes different colors. Like you could fix it to match your house. If I were making this for my house, I would paint the stripes gray. In fact, I did make one that I painted it gray for my house. All right, now we're going to let this one dry. And then we'll come back to it. Okay, so this is dried. I've looked at it and it's dry, so we're going to take it off. Nice crisp edges. I'm just hoping it didn't picked up a little bit on that, but then it makes it look kind of distressed, which is good. So we have about 1/4 inch there. So now we're going to go on the other side. And do 1/4 inch. Okay, so how did I do that? I went 1/4 inch. I'll make it look like the other one. That might be too much. not quite even. And now we're going to go 1/4 of an inch off of that. Now we're going to measure 1/4 of an inch. Not quite 1/4 of an inch, so. Quarter of an inch. Now we press down the sides. Okay, pour a little more paint. With our stencil brush. Don't forget to stencil down the side. Now we're going to let that dry. Oh, and I see a spot right here that came up a little bit. Just touch up there. Okay, now we're going to let that dry. Time for a little Diet Coke. Okay, this one's ready too. Let's see how our edges did. Pretty good. A little bit of bleeding on this end. And that was the only one. Okay, so I am going to, there's a few places here in the middle where the paint came up a little bit. Gotta watch your edge though. Okay. So here's the finished product. All done up. So I hope you enjoyed our black striped table riser. And until next time, we will see you. Thank you so much.